Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I'm Peter, that is Connor. We talk about movies on this show. Not new releases, that's for gigawatts. We talk about, not, I wouldn't say random, but, we pick older films. Sometimes it's something we want to watch because we've not seen it yet. Sometimes it's because there's a new film coming out and it's related to it and we want to catch up on the old movies or whatever. But this is actually, for the first time in about 6 movies, I get to watch something that I hadn't seen already. This was on my to-watch list, which is why we watched it. And that is French film Les Trou, which translates as The Hole. Interesting that this is one where we don't use the English title. Because there's some foreign films where it always gets translated into English, and you just, Seven Samurai, we don't call that Sichin no Samurai or whatever the Japanese is. We call it Seven Samurai. But there's some movies, for some reason, where it stays in the original language.
I wonder if it's just because it's French, and obviously we have a lot of French words in our language already.
Maybe. Yeah, but there's a lot of French movies we don't keep the French titles for.
Maybe it's just simple enough that we don't care enough to bother changing it.
Do you know what I think it is? I think it just sounds cooler than The Hole.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably. That's probably it. Just sounds more sophisticated than saying The Hole.
It did make me wonder, obviously. Trousers. Did that come from trou, being French for hole? It's leg holes.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't know.
Just made me think.
But yeah, so what is Les Trou? Les Trou is a prison break movie. It is about a group of 5 male characters who are in share a prison cell. It's kind of like a sort of roommate situation in this prison, and they are working their way to escape, and that's the movie. That's simple as can be in terms of plot synopsis. So we'll start spoiler free, as we typically do. We'll give you a sense if you liked it or not, and then we'll talk a bit more deep plot details later on. So, and we'll give you a warning, obviously, before we do. So, Connor, did you enjoy Les Trou?
I did. That was pretty good.
I also enjoyed it quite a bit. I'd go as far as to say I loved it. I think this is very expertly crafted in what it does, because I think one of the things I like about it is, as much as it's a prison break movie and it's set in a prison and it does all these escape kind of scenes, it never muddies it up by doing other things. I feel like most prison movies, it's like, oh, it's the horror of being inside a prison, like the awful people in there and the dangers of everyone around you.
But everyone's kind of nice.
Yeah, this one has an odd kind of microcosm. It's very much like an analysis of society, where if you put a bunch of people in a situation, they kind of form their own micro society.
Yeah,
and they kind of work together in that capacity, and we see that with everyone here. Even the prisoners and the guards, they're kind of formal with each other. Maybe it's just a French thing. Maybe French prisons are just a bit more civilized than everyone else's, but they kind of work together in that sense. They're very polite and cordial for the most part.
but there's points where they're outright friendly as well. Like they'll go as far as helping each other out a bit.
Yeah, and then the escape stuff itself is very methodical, but also very suspenseful. It does. Visually, it gets quite interesting, especially once we get into tunnels and stuff. There's a lot of really cool stuff with light, where there's just a single sort of flame lighting the shot, and it's going down a long hallway and
lots of really
that.
Nice edits to show the passage of time as well.
Yeah, but I think one of the things it does that it's to its benefit is when it refuses to do a passage of time and it just does it in real time. Now, obviously, it can't do everything in real time because the movie would be days long, but there's the first time they actually dig something, which is in their cell, to make a hole, the titular hole. It does it all in real time, and it eventually cuts ahead, but it takes a long time before it decides to do that. And not only does it not cut ahead, it stays in the one shot, just looking at the hole for a long time.
Yeah.
And what makes it work so well is because it's really loud. And they're doing it during the day because there's works going on elsewhere in the prison. There's noise that it'll kind of just blend into, is the idea. But you feel like, if a guard walks past the door, they're going to tell that it's coming from that direction. And the whole thing's very tense, and you feel it stays with it for every single hit, because every single hit is dangerous. Every single noise they make is dangerous.
I think there's only a couple of times it looks away, and it's to look through the peephole.
Yeah.
Which is some really inventive camera work as well. Everything that's looking at that people is just really great to watch.
Do you know what I think's the great benefit to direction is that not only is it's great camera work, but it comes across in a very simple way. You never feel like it's doing anything flashy.
No, but it just looks good, doesn't it?
It does. Like they've put a lot of thought into them walking down this dark corridor with a flame because it looks so good, but it never feels like it's actually doing anything that exciting. It just
that's it.
does it.
It's the camera itself isn't doing anything much. It's just really clever planning of the shots.
Yeah. It's the composition, where the actors are going to be, where's the framing of the room. That's all it is. But so much thought goes into it that it comes off feeling so stylistic and slick.
Yeah.
When it's actually really simple. It just very confident. Yeah. Jacques Becker, who directed the film, he passed away a few months after it came out. This was his last film. I don't think I've seen anything else by him. I'm not familiar with his work. I might be interested now to go back and look at
after this
some of his previous stuff. I think another reason why I like it is I think prison movies typically are very dour and they're very depressing and they're very murky for the most part. It's just the kind of the atmosphere they typically go for. This, like we say, it has this kind of camaraderie in it.
Do you know what's really amusing? That first, all those words you just described as prison movies, that's typically what would spring to my mind about a French movie. if you say, French movies on the whole, my mind would probably go towards that side of the spectrum.
I don't know, you get some light, fluffy...
Oh, you do. I'm just,
of
course you do, but that's just where my mind would go to first.
Fair enough. There's an irony then that this movie, which is also a topic that you would expect that from, but you put them together and it gives you this...
So suddenly it's not.
It's two negatives multiplying to make a positive.
It is, exactly.
Kind of idea. So I like the characters. I think all 5 of the main characters are very well defined, despite the fact that we don't necessarily get to know a lot about most of them. They keep their past kind of to themselves.
You don't really need to. You get who they are, you get who they are as a character. What are their character traits just through context.
Because the inciting sort of incident is that our not our main character, but the young character, Claude, he has just been transferred cell. He was in a different block, and he gets put into their cell, and because they're overcrowding a little bit, there's only meant to be 4, because they argue a little bit at first, like, no, we've already got 4 in here, why? But because like part of this prison's been redone or something, they're crowding some of the other cells, and this new guy comes in, and you can tell they're kind of casing him out for a little bit, because they've already got this plan to escape, and they're trying to figure out, should we tell him? Because we can't not tell him, really, if we want to go through with it, because he's going to notice.
Yeah.
It's going to be in front of him. But you can tell that's what they're doing. They're being friendly, but they're examining. And some of them are better than others. The older guy, Monseigneur, pardon my pronunciation of French words, he's much friendlier up front, whereas some of the others are clearly a bit more quieter and analysing. He's, what he's like, is he to be trusted, all these kind of things, and you get it all from and this is the other thing that I was just looking into the movie afterwards. Apparently, all the actors here, they're all kind of new. Like none of them are like experienced actors. The director went out of his way to get people who were kind of fresh.
Surprising, I would never have guessed that.
Because the acting's phenomenal. Pretty
right,
much all
exactly. Which is obviously that's not to say newcomers can't be great, because clearly this proves they can, and countless other things have. But you just when it's at this sort of level, you expect them to be seasoned veterans.
Yeah, I think it partly shows. I mean, there's simple enough characters in that they're all kind of like typical guys who happen to be in prison. But I think on top of that, you have this. It's an example of what directing the actors is important as the actor themselves.
Yeah.
And I think this is an example of that, where the director clearly knows how to get performances out of them, how to direct them, and.
I think it does help that the characters feel very natural and realistic, so it's not like a big leap to think, oh, this is what these guys would be like if they're all sharing a room.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It feels very down to earth in that sense. It mostly feels grounded. The only time it felt kind of a little far-fetched to me was sometimes with the noises. I feel like someone would hear that. There was a few times like that where that kind of crept out of my head, but because when they're hitting concrete with a bit of metal, it's like, this is really loud.
It is pretty damn loud.
You might as well just bang in the wall with a hammer. I mean, it'd be a similar sort of noise level.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, like, it feels very grounded, and even as something as simple when they are digging a hole, they make it big enough that I buy they can get through it. Because some movies, sometimes I feel like they kind of cheat a little bit. They're like,
Yeah,
nah,
they
you
go
can't.
one of two ways. They either make it too small and then are just like, okay, right, or they go too big and I'm like, why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, and there's a lot of smart little tricks that they do, and I think that's the other thing I really enjoyed about it was how creative the prisoners got. Partly these characters in their escape plan, but also just how generally they were. Like, they had like a postal system. If they were sneaking packages to one cell to another, there was like
Yeah,
this chain of like helping each other out to get it down the line of the windows.
yeah,
And
there
it
was
was
real
just
camaraderie, wasn't there?
yeah, and again it goes back to this idea of it creates this sense of society
Yeah,
in here, where they make their own little world and they kind of live in it. And it's funny because I think where we go towards the end of the movie, that kind of the commentary about that really comes to light, and it's, but
yeah.
it's the whole thing. So in terms of spoiler-free stuff, is there anything else you want to talk about
I
before
want to
we?
say small thing that distracted me kind of early on,
Uh huh.
but nothing that is at any fault with the film or anything to do with it. But the guy, yeah, the main guy that we're introduced to, the new one,
Claude.
yes, he proper looks like Schmidt from New Girl.
Do you know, it's funny you say someone looks like someone, actually. He kind of does. I can kind of see it now you've said it. Because Roland, who's the experienced one, who kind of knows what he's doing, he's tried to escape before. He has some skills.
Hmm.
He actually looks like a guy who I went to college with. Like, spitting image. To the point where I once found the poster of this movie, and I made a point of sending it to him. I was like, hey, look at this guy. He looks like you. I mean, he looks like 20 years older than you, but he looks like you. And yeah,
Yeah,
that was kind of distracting for a while.
it's one of those moments that is when it looks like someone, even if it is someone you know or someone from something else. It's just it takes you out while you're thinking about how they look like someone.
Especially this character, because he's so smart, and I'm like, nah, he'd never be that smart.
Fair.
I think another thing I liked about the escape plan and all the little tricks to do, like the master key and things like that. A lot of that stuff, I was like, this is kind of interesting in a sort of like a time capsule way, because a lot of these things just wouldn't work now because we have new security methods, we have new
Yeah,
styles of doors aren't just hinges with wooden.
yeah, it
You know,
occurred to me as well.
like, this only works in this time period of prison. It would never work now, regardless of. I don't know how accurate this was in terms of this is what a prison in France would have looked like at the time, but certainly, let's assume it was. Certainly, I don't think now the prison in France would look like this at all, or any other prison.
I should very seriously hope not, because otherwise, then join this century, people.
So you've got that, and I think the film does some really smart things. Like early on, like our main guy Claude gets a package, and he goes to wait for his pack. And it's another example of the scene being very long and it going through every single thing. Like the person in front of him gets a package and there's food in it, and the guard, like, this is just routine. They go through everything in the package to make sure there's nothing been snuck in. So he cuts through bread, he cuts through butter, cuts through cake. It's all with the same knife as well, which just on a hygiene level was really bothering me. But you get why he's doing it, and then again, like, so Claude comes up and he does the same thing to Hall As stuff. He cuts even through a bit of fish. He's like, just to make
Yeah,
sure no one's stuck anything in the fish. And I think what's really smart about that, it happens early in the film. It's showing you, no, this is how thorough the guards are. This is what they're up against. This is
yeah,
what they do with the food that's
yeah.
getting brought in.
Even though it's like friendly enough, they're very serious in their responsibilities.
Exactly. So it sets up all the game, and like I say, it keeps it very simple. Like once the actual escape starts, it's very long sequences of them trying to achieve one part of the plan.
Yeah,
And
like I say, it's very methodical, like one thing at a time.
yeah, so yeah, so I'll give the spoiler warning just so we can delve into some later stuff and character things. Um, so I think we'll talk about the ending. We'll go back and talk about some more of the escape stuff because a lot of that's obviously quite exciting.
Yeah,
But I think in terms of the characters, you're better off just sort of starting at the end. And, okay, this is where it goes, and this is what the drama of the story is. Because obviously there's a lot of suspense, there's a lot of tension, but the character drama of the story is so. As soon as Claude is introduced to the other characters, one of the big things they want to do with him is establish what he's in there for. Because if he's in there for something small and he's only going to be there for a short amount of time, he's not going to be as willing to try and escape because what's the point in risking it?
yeah,
So they're very like, oh, what did you do? Well, why are you in here? And he tells this story about attempted murder where he's supposed to have tried to murder his wife, but the story he tells isn't quite. it's very, very sort of wishy-washy. It's like, oh, the wife pulled out a shotgun and it went off and it hit her shoulder, but she told people that he had the shotgun out. And it's like, oh, that doesn't sound like it'll add up. You know, like when this goes to
Yeah.
court and people try and prove things, and he gives some more evidence and he gives them some more details, and it's almost like the other characters all kind of, in an effort to convince themselves, say, oh no, this is, or if not convince themselves, convince him that he's going to get a long sentence because of it. Because, oh, it's because the wife is rich, that's going to look worse than what it would have, and it's because of this that it's going to. And it's like they're trying to convince him that his sentence is going to be longer, because if it's not, you know, he won't be as willing to go along with
Yeah, they get it up to like, hey, you're getting 20 years easy. You might as well do this.
it. Exactly. When in actual fact, it's probably not. And then the other big difference with him is that he does come from money. I mean, he says he sells cars and he lives off his wife's money, but you kind of get the impression that he's kind of used to, because the opening scene with him, he's visiting the warden because he's been caught with this gold lighter on him that he wants to keep for sentimental value. And the warden's kind of friendly to him, says, "I'll turn a blind eye, but you," and you can get, you know, the warden seems like he has some sort of ulterior motive for that. It's like, oh, I'll do this for you, and then later
Yeah.
on, when I ask something of you, you
But
owe me
in
one.
general, he seems like a fair man.
The warden? Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. We never see him be fair with anyone else. We just see him be fair with Claude
That's
repeatedly.
true, but we don't see him interact with that many other people either.
No, that's true. That's true. So that's the two big facets here. Is that he's kind of the odd one out because he seems to have come from money where the others haven't, and his crime doesn't sound like it's going to be that serious ultimately once it's you know, proven in a court of law.
Mm.
And for a while it's okay, because this is the thing, is he actually, like, once he's a part of the plan and he's helping, he's, you know, he offers to be the lookout. He uses the little the makeshift periscope. It's this little toothbrush with a bit of mirror attached to the end of it that they've snuck together.
Yeah.
Which they keep, again, like you said, the camera keeps using that. It's like looking through the peephole and you see the reflection down the hall.
It's a great effect, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it's every time it swivels, it just looks so good.
And so you've got that, and he's so excited to be a part of it. And repeatedly throughout the movie, he talks about how he feels happy to be included in this. He's lucky that he came here. He feels like he's finally who he's supposed to be. Like he's a part of a group. He feels that he belongs to.
Yeah.
And at this point in the movie, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, maybe it'll come up that he could. Maybe he'll find out that he doesn't have to have a long sentence, but he'll go through with it anyway because he feels like he likes doing this better than his life before. Like, he wasn't really, because the whole thing as well is that he was having an affair because he wasn't really in love with his wife. Like, he was kind of, you know,
Having an affair with her sister.
he wasn't happy with his life. That was like a big part of it. So, but later on in the movie, he gets called to the warden's office right towards the end, just before, it's like the day before they're going to escape, or the day of they're going to escape that
it's the
night.
day of, yeah.
And the warden tells him, "Oh, your wife dropped the charges. She's went to her lawyer and you know, dropped the charges because she's admitted that it wasn't a big deal or whatever." And the scene expertly, by the way, cuts away. Like, we don't get to see the end of this conversation. Everything's been so methodical, but this one scene, it cuts away before the end of the
And
conversation.
it really stands out because it's the first time all movie where you're like, what comes next? Where you've never had that feeling until then.
Yeah, and so you're sitting there going, "Oh God, tell me he didn't. Tell me he didn't, like, give them up." Because that's the thing. If they'd escaped and he didn't go with them, he'd still be in trouble to an extent because he'd know about it. There's no way he wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, it's the same for the guy that's staying behind.
Yeah, Manu.
Where-
Yeah. Or not
yeah.
Manu. Sorry, yeah, Joe.
Yeah, he knows that he's gonna have to put up with shit, even though they've left. He hasn't gone, but he could have turned them in.
And again, from a character perspective, like, again, you like him a little bit more because the reason why he doesn't want to leave is because he knows that it'll upset his mother. Like, his mother almost had a heart attack when she found out he was going to prison. So the idea of the thought of someone going to her and telling her, "Oh, he's escaped now, he's a fugitive," he doesn't want to have that on his conscience. So he's that. So it's, again,
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, you kind of respect him a little bit more, and you have a bit of sympathy for all of them. But sure enough, they're getting ready to go out, and again, we return to this little periscope, and it's looking down one side of the hallway, and the
Watching
camera
the
stays on
guard
it.
walk away.
Yeah, and then it swivels, and there's like 15 guards
There's
just
just like
staring,
an army of them. The way
Yeah.
it looks in that periscope.
and it is legitimately a shit yourself moment.
Yeah.
And the guy starts screaming, and they all sort of panic, and then they rush the cell, and they know why this has happened. Like, One of them immediately goes for Claude and starts strangling him, and then the guards run in and pull them all off. And they're all lined up outside, and they're told to strip, and they're all going into solitary, and they're obviously going to be punished heavily for this. And we get this walk of shame. Claude has to walk out of the cell in front of them all lined up and walk to his new cell down the hall.
Yeah.
That's a private cell just for him. It'll be there for the weeks or months that he's got left until this is all cleared up because the charges have been dropped. And you hear all the other prisoners in their cells all banging on the doors and stuff. It's just it's a commotion.
Mm.
And it's actually Roland turns to him and says, "I'm sorry, Claude. I'm so it is." And I think it's an interesting response because obviously they were angry a minute ago, and it's like what. And I think what's legitimately impressive about this movie, we talked a lot about how there's a sense of community, a sense of this little civilization within this system. And it legitimately feels like us, much like the other prisoners, feel betrayed. That he went back on us by doing this.
It's this whole thing where the whole movie feels so optimistic. Like, look how good society can be when everyone,
works together.
Works together. And even though this is an awful place, it's a prison, they can still make it easy for themselves. Everyone can get along. And then it gets cynical at the end and it just goes, yeah, but there's always one dick who's going to betray everyone and going to be out in it for himself. Well, which is ultimately, he's there because it's like, well, I don't need to do this. I can get out.
Well, I would further read into the ending because we talked about how he was the odd one out because he came from money and obviously his crime wasn't as big a deal. And I think what's interesting here is that he's not done as much illegal stuff as the others. I mean, if his story's accurate, what he said, he did nothing wrong actually. he was he was cheating on his wife. Sure, okay, that's bad.
Yeah, but that's not illegal.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything illegal. Yeah. But he comes off as the villain at the end of this movie, and I think part of this is why it's like another example of the powerful rich person screwing over the poor to save themselves. Instead of going through with it, he saves his own ass, even though it throws the rest of them down the toilet. And I think
look, you've used a few metaphors here,
okay,
but you need to use it throws them in the hole.
Okay, in the hole.
Especially as their solitary confinement is the hole. The warden keeps saying, "I'll send you to the hole."
Okay, sure.
You missed it once too many times, and I had to get this out.
I think it is an example of that. It's like because he like feels belonging, but as soon as he's offered a chance out, he immediately turns his back on it, and it's kind of a testament to his character. He's kind of a weasel in that sense. He tries to be nice, but deep down...
he gets there and he immediately starts sharing his food. It's like, hey, we're all in this together. Might as well make the best of it. But as soon as a better opportunity is there, that's it.
He's not part of this society. We keep saying society, civilization.
Yeah, he feels like he's above it. He shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine, assuming his story is true, he's looking around these guys going, no, you all committed crimes. You should be here. I didn't. This is a mistake.
Yeah, but it does feel like a genuine walk of shame as he walks to that other cell.
It does, yeah.
Because this is the final moment of the film. He walks in the cell and it shuts, and it's like, and okay, we know he's probably going to get out soon, but it does kind of feel like, okay, you turned them all in, and now you're just going to another cell. Like, that's you.
And he even said that, like, again, you don't know how reliable this is. He's like, okay, he could still end up here for like 5 years if things don't go to plan.
Yeah, who's to say the warden wasn't lying?
Yeah, it could well have been. The warden could suspect, and it was just like, no, you know what? I think he can be cracked.
Yeah, because it's interesting as well, because you have that scene where the sister that he was having an affair with comes to visit him, and it's this kind of awkward confrontation where she offers these ideas. Oh, I'll go to London for a year, and I'll come back, and you'll be out, and me being away will calm the sister down, and she'll maybe drop the charges or stop going so hard on him, and it's like this reminder of his life is because at this point I thought he was like committed to the team, because it felt like he was almost annoyed that he was, or like this reminder of what his life was is like, oh, that wasn't really me. Now I feel like I'm actually at home. I'm somewhere.
Do you know what I love? Like after this, he walks out annoyed, and he wanders back to his cell, but he goes back to his old cell accidentally.
Yeah, like
he literally accidentally wandered back to his old life on autopilot. It's just like, no, it's his old life that he wants.
Yeah, exactly. As he's old, and what I think is really fascinating about this though is that and the other, like, technically speaking, he does nothing wrong. Technically speaking, he does what's right because he is innocent. He should get out. I mean, because even if he's innocent, if he escapes from prison when he's meant to be there, he's then going to be charged for that. He will actually be a criminal, legitimately, at that point.
Yeah.
So he's doing the right thing, but it still feels like a betrayal because we're part of this,
And
this
that's it.
society with them.
Even turning criminals escaping from prison in should be the right thing to do, in theory.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But in this movie, it's not.
Yeah. Because it almost doesn't matter. Once you're just in that society, you're, like, what matters outside isn't the same anymore. And there's even that little tease, actually, because basically once they get out, there's this great sequence of, like, two of them going through all the tunnels and the cellar, and then they find the access to the sewer. They go down there. There's a lot of fun little things where they make a little, egg timer, the little sand thingy, so they can sort of time how long they've been down there, so they can get back up in time for wake up call and stuff like that. And they're just like they're digging at this hole because they can't go through the concrete that's blocking the sewer. They have to sort of dig around it, and they're working at that for such a long time. They're going down in shifts, night after night. Two of them will go down, and it's actually Claude, who's down there. He's down there with Manu, and because Manu's probably the one who's the most suspicious of him the whole movie. He's the one who's kind of like, oh, I don't know.
Even at the end when he gets back from the warden, he's the one who immediately jumps at him.
And they actually break out. They're the first ones to break out. They break through the hole. It's this great sequence. They run out and they get to this sewer cover, the manhole, and they pop through and they see outside the prison. They see the streets and they see like shops and they see a taxi go by, a cab, and and at the time it's almost like it's a little joke, but it's almost a little bit of foreshadowing, like he's tempted to betray them, where he's like, oh, we could almost just take that cab.
Oh yeah.
Because that's the thing though. If they piss off right now, the other three don't get a chance to escape because
they could, and Manu even plays it off as a joke. When they get back, he's like, this one wanted to take a taxi.
Yeah.
But even then, like, even though he's, like I say, he's the most untrusting of him, he plays it as a joke.
Yeah, because it makes sense as a joke. Like, even if if you were so loyal to these other people, you would maybe crack that joke.
Yeah.
But,
friendly banter.
Yeah, exactly. So like I say, the character stuff is so strong. They're all so well defined. Like I say, you got the older one who's very pleasant to everyone. It's again, we set up even the dynamics with the guards is quite good because they get the not the warden of the prison, but the cell block kind of the head guard of the cell block.
Yeah.
These plumbers come in to fix their water faucet, and they steal some of their stuff from the little cupboard. They've got
cigarettes and stamps.
Yeah, they got food in there as well. Don't let it go after the food though. And they basically tell this to the head guard, and he's like, "Oh, I'll get them back." And it's
he comes in, he's like, it's a bit stiff now. That's a good excuse to get them back.
Yeah, he brings them back in. He shuts the door behind them, and knowing full well that the prisoners are going to beat them up a little bit and like teach them a lesson. And that's okay. Again, it shows you that they've got this mutual agreement or respect with the guards.
No, it's like the prison guard's like, yeah, you're in prison, but you're good prisoners. They shouldn't have stole your stuff. I'll do you a solid.
Yeah, but I wonder how much they're going to have that attitude now after they've been caught trying to escape.
Yep.
Because that's the other thing. They'll probably never be let be in the same cell again. They'll just split them all up because they'll have ideas, and it's like you had this good little society where you trusted each other, and now you've lost it. You've lost everything because of it. So again, it's another thing that the rich guy or the guy who saw himself as in a different group kind of ruined
it for everyone.
Yeah. So no, character stuff is so strong. You really understand who they all are, what they're sort of. They have their own quirks, they have their own personalities, they have their own kind of, maybe not motivations per se, because they all want to get out of prison.
They all want to get out of prison.
But yeah, they're all distinct, and I think that's the worry of having like 5 male characters in a prison. Is you could very easily have 2 that feel a lot alike, but I don't think any of these do.
No, not at all.
So really, really good in that sense. So the one thing I guess we have kind of glossed over actually is the actual escape itself. And we mentioned getting out of the sewer and climbing into the thing, but there's so many great moments. I think one highlight is when they're in the cellar and they're sort of timing the guards, like making their rounds, and the guards come in, and the only thing to hide behind is this pillar in the middle of the room, and it's Claude. It's not Claude. Sorry, it's Roland and Manu. And Manu, because there's just this pillar that's about maybe.
It's only wide enough for one person to hide behind.
So the other one, so Roland's in the bottom and Manu's on his shoulders. He's standing on his shoulders, and they're actually quietly like sort of shuffling around the pillar, so they're always on the opposite side of the guards, and it's just again very simple but very suspenseful and very well choreographed. I'm sure they had to practice this so they didn't accidentally like go too late, so the guards would see them and things like that. Very slick, but nah, that was because they play it very well because you don't know where they're hiding at first. The guards come in and the guards aren't reacting to anything, so you're like, okay, they must be hiding. And then it reveals where they are, and it's like this great little oh shit, like
yeah, it's great.
That's where
that whole sequence is fantastic. It's so tense because even though in your mind you're like, well, they can't be caught because there's still half a movie to go. They're still going to get further with the plan, surely. But every time they're on the way back and they open a door that they've already been through, and you don't see the other side of the door, you just see their faces. And every time it happens, I'm like, is there a guard on the other side of this door?
Yeah, it plays with what you know could happen at any point.
Yeah.
Because we've established already at this point that the guards are making rounds and they're constantly going round. Maybe every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, they'll be going past the same area. And you know that's a possibility. And it keeps playing with that.
And they've got this little light, and you got to go, okay, I know you need this light to see, obviously, but it makes you so much easier to be spotted.
Exactly. But like I said, I mentioned earlier, the shots of them walking down these dark hallways with just this light source, and you can just see this box of light moving down the hallway. It's really
there's some where the camera literally just sits still at the top of the hall and just watches them walk down. That's it, but it just looks great.
Yeah, so much atmosphere. It's so eerie.
Yeah,
it just works. It's great. Actually, I want to mention the opening scene's actually a really interesting little curiosity because you have Roland speak to the camera. He breaks the fourth wall. And he said he's working in a car. He's doing some stuff in the engine, and he pops up and says, "Oh, hey, the director," and he mentions the director by name. Director told my story and what a story it is, and then it fades to black and it goes to the start of the movie proper.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting about that is I think that's actually setting you up to think they do it, that they actually succeed because he's out. That must be what happened.
Right, but it's genius because he's got to get out eventually.
Sure, and then even then though you're like, well, how trustworthy was that? Because he was breaking the fourth wall, so arguably it doesn't really mean anything.
Right, but even if it's completely reliable, A, he could have been just interviewed from within prison. B, he could have just got out and finished his sentence and then told the story. So
well, if he's already got like 20 years and he's getting more added on for trying to escape, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, parole for early. He's a model prisoner after that.
He should look like 60 by this point, sure, but go on.
Whatever. He gets interviewed from within the prison. Let's just go with that one.
Okay. Sure. There's a curiosity, though. I thought that was an interesting little start, that he's spoken character. And I knew the director died soon after the movie, and I wasn't sure if it was before it got released. And I was wondering if to maybe shot this as a little extra, as just a little, we'll give him a little mention at the start. But no, he died months after it was released, so this was a choice. This was a conscious choice by him, even at the time. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was curious. Any other parts of the plan that you liked? Moments. Obviously, we mentioned the digging the hole in the cell. All of the digging underneath was very suspenseful.
I think that's actually the vast majority of the plan in action is watching them hit things, whether it be the floor, a door, filing a bar. Yeah. It's a lot of just hitting and filing, and it's to its credit that never gets boring because there is a lot of it.
It is absolutely riveting the entire time, and there's a chance where it could have went too long, and maybe it was long at first, and they've cut it down a bit, and they've said, okay, right,
that's where some of those time edits are.
But it's fascinating because, like you say, that one where they're failing the bar, there's like a sort of just the bars and the sort of window, it's down the cellar, and they want to take one out so they can get through, and they're just failing at it, and it takes ages, and it's a really
it's because they have this thing. It's like, well, what if they hear us? It's like, okay, well, we'll do 20 files and then stop and listen. So you have this, for like 5 seconds or whatever it is of them filing, and then a pause, and then again. It does that like 4 or 5 times before it cuts ahead in time.
Yeah, it's really. Like I say, it's really suspenseful the entire time. And I think it's because you know that this is dangerous, that they could be caught at any moment.
And I think what I like as well is, obviously you're just watching them, but because you can hear the file, you can't hear if there's any guards coming either. So when there's the silence, you're listening as well. Yeah,
exactly. And I think by never cheating and fading ahead too much, It does it here or there because ultimately there has to be a fade because we can't just sit and do it the whole thing in real time. But by never fading ahead, it never makes it feel easy. Seeing it as long as we do makes it always feel extremely difficult and dangerous.
Yeah, definitely.
And you get that, going through this will take several nights of like hitting at it with this metal bar, and so on. And at one point, obviously, there's a little cave in, and you think, oh, one of them might have bit the dust. But sure enough, especially since it's the guy who wants to stay back, and we already know that at this point.
He's the expendable one, so to speak.
Yeah. But no, and that's the thing. Like even though he knows he's not going, and he's already decided that, he still helps. He does everything.
He still does his full share of the work.
Yeah. So no, it's great stuff. I thoroughly recommend this. I think character work's so strong, it's so suspenseful, it's expertly crafted. So I think, unless you've got anything you want to add, I think
we've covered it.
We'll get to ratings. So what would you rate Trou out of? And I'm trying to say that as French as possible. So forgive me if I'm sounding like
yes, I think it would be Le Trou.
Trou, okay.
I think.
Trou.
Maybe I'm wrong. Look at this. I did French lessons for 5 years, and I don't know how you say this.
Nah, I did German, so I can't.
I did 5 of French and 3 of German. So
Nick so gut, which is about the extent of.
I literally don't know what you just said. My brain does not do languages.
Not so good. I remember that. I remember nothing. I remember numbers and like 1 or 2 phrases. That's about it. But anyway, what would you rate it?
I'm tossing between an 8 and an 8.5, kind of in that range. I think I'll give it the 8.5.
Cool. I'm actually going to shoot for a straight 9.
Hmm?
I was riveted from start to finish. And even before they got to the plan stuff, because I knew it was going to involve an escape plan of some kind. But as soon as he walked into that cell with those other guys, it's like everything about it was like, okay, I'm learning who these are. They're nervous about them. Like everything was just like.
I would just want to add on, as you can probably tell, I am a bit ill, so
yeah,
when I'm ill, that kind of factors into how much you get into something. So
okay.
I may push it up on future rewatches when I'm not ill, because I'm sure I will rewatch this at some point.
Oh, it's fantastic. So no, it's good, great stuff. I highly recommend Trou, aka The Hole. So yeah, there you go. So let's know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/milefuzztv. You get these Influx reviews a week early. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.